A soft tremor rippled through Cirrus Station's inner ring, rattling coffee bulbs and loose suit seals, signaling another impact somewhere on the outer hull. The colossal habitat, floating in a ragged halo of shattered ice beyond Neptune, had been under bombardment for 11 hours now, though it felt like weeks. Cargo tugs that once ferried ore to Jovian foundries now drifted in smoking fragments. Escape shuttles had been picked off the moment they tried to break orbit, and still the Dominion's Corvette line tightened, flooding space with sensor sweeps meant to locate any sign of resistance. Arden Reyes sat in the flicker-lit hush of Subdeck 29, wedged between coolant lines and thick bundles of fiber-optic nerves. Gray-green code scrolled across 3 makeshift holopanes that hovered over an ancient stolen fleet console, a device never meant to survive outside a cruiser's CIC. He had dragged it down here months ago, back when rumors of a blockade were only drunken paranoia. Now the repurposed hardware hummed like a cathedral organ as he mapped Dominion sensor frequencies, bouncing them off Cirrus Station's labyrinthine superstructure and the dense ice clouds swirling in the colony's slipstream. A good static cracked over his headset. Deck 29, confirm status. You're still breathing, Reyes. The voice belonged to Commander El DeVos, the militia officer currently masquerading as station security chief, triaging fires on 6 decks and trying to keep 6,000 civilians from panicking. Arden clicked transmit. Still here, generators holding, bandwidth 70%. You get my last packet? Affirmative. We rerouted power from hydroponics like you asked. This better work, kid. Dominion bombers are making another pass in 4 mics. It'll work, he said, injecting a confidence he didn't entirely feel. Outwardly he was calm, tapered black hair falling over one eye, a hint of grease on his cheek, hands dancing across responsive air. Inwardly, a cold knot had formed hours ago and hadn't loosened since. A fresh batch of Dominion telemetry scrolled across the far pane. Arden's custom algorithms dissected every ping, identified modulation quirks, and generated a topographic map of the enemy's sensor lattice, an invisible net cast around the station. He spotted gaps, intersections, exploitable redundancies. He knew them almost intimately now, like the scars of an old lover. He leaned in. Red Epoch 3, he whispered. A meter away, a suitcase-sized transmitter the color of hammered gunmetal pulsed awake. It looked like scrap because most of it was. But inside ticked a suite of microsurface processors and a mesh of quantum keys Arden had lifted from a retired fleet skirmisher. He'd spent 3 nights soldering them into a rig so illegal it didn't technically exist. He exhaled, remembering why he'd volunteered. To buy time for the hospital ward where his sister lay, spine cracked from a collapsed bulkhead. The nannies said she wouldn't walk again without the med bay on Titan. That meant evacuation. Evacuation meant a corridor through Dominion guns. If Arden failed, she'd never feel gravity again. He executed the program. Immediately, the console dimmed as a festival of phantom echoes burst outward from Pack 3, threading through Dominion's sensor space like stealth comets. They were nothing but tailored electromagnetic stutter-so ghosts that mimicked the heat signature, transponder squawk, and vector wobble of real strike craft. Each ghost was unique, endowed with a carefully imperfect flight profile so human analysts, or worse, machine learning sentries, would mistake them for cocky militia pilots eager to duel. 3 Dominion interceptors peeled from formation, thrusters flaring blue, chasing the first ghost as it weaved toward the icy debris field at Cirrus's Terminator. Arden watched their telemetry in real time. The lead pilot nosed down to match the enemy roll, priming rail cannons. At the last possible moment, the ghost vanished programmed, to disperse into background noise once it lured its quarry into the densest patch of drifting ice. Arden hissed, "Come on, follow through!" The interceptor's sensor grid suddenly populated with 100 new contacts, fragments of overturned cargo, stray girders, thousands of shards of shining ice, each one falsely fluorescing with weapon locks. To the cockpit-bound humans it must have looked like an ambush. The lead pilot jerked hard starboard and clipped an invisible girder at 700 meters per second. His fighter disintegrated into a white blossom. The second flyer attempted a corkscrew, overcorrected, and slammed a chunk of ore 20 meters wide. Only the third regained orientation in time to abort, spinning back toward the Dominion line with hull plating flayed. Arden sagged against the bulkhead, sweat beading. 2 fighters down, 0 ammunition expended. He didn't cheer. The price of every small victory was recorded somewhere in his soul, a ledger awaiting repayment. The price of every small victory was recorded somewhere in his soul, a ledger awaiting repayment. Commander Voss came back online, breath ragged from sprinting a corridor. "Reyes, we saw the fireballs. Hell of a trick." "Just the opening act," Arden murmured. "Tell your gunners to stand down. Any plasma trace trips my feedback filter. If they shoot now, the Dominion AI will flag the inconsistencies." "Copy. So what's next?" "Phase 2. I make them believe the station's engines are spooling. Ideally, they redeploy to intercept a non-existent retreat vector. That opens a real hole on the far side for your corvettes to sneak out." "Understood. We've got 4 corvettes left. One's basically chewing gum and prayer." A pause. "Any word on emergency traffic lanes from Neptune Command?" "No answers," Arden said. What he didn't add, Neptune Command hadn't responded in hours. For all he knew, Dominion saboteurs had taken their comm buoy offline, or worse. He reopened PAC-3's command window, cued a macro labeled Exodus. It generated a ghost so audacious even he doubted it would fly. A simulated burn of the station's defunct fusion drives. Those drives hadn't lit since Cirrus was tugged into orbit 10 years ago, but the Dominion engineers prowling outside couldn't be sure. They only had sensors, and sensors could be lied to. First, Arden seeded the net with low-level heat signatures, like warming capacitors. Then, he ramped line emissions through a scatterburst across every known maintenance channel. It was messy, noisy, worked directionlessly close to tipping his hand. If Dominion techs noticed the fingerprints of a single source, it would all unravel, so he diversified, letting one ghost broadcast a slurred maintenance code from Deck 12, another echo the override tone of a long-retired dock computer. He even spoofed the cadence of Chief Engineer Mbecky's voice, lifting snippets from public announcements recorded years ago, stitching them into jumbled instruction. Initiate. Reactor sequence 3 concurred. Within 4 minutes, half the Dominion destroyers had swiveled small dish arrays toward Cirrus's aft quarter, registering a hypothetical power spike. Arden keyed open a private channel to Medical Annex 7. A tired nurse answered. Behind her, bodies lay strapped to gurneys that vibrated with each external hit. "Para-subtype casualty list?" Arden asked. 4 new spinals. 8 fractures, 1 decompression, the nurse replied. He swallowed. "How's Marisol?" "Stable for now. Asking for you. Soon," he said, knowing soon could be hours or forever. He closed the channel and forced his gaze back to numbers and graphs, because numbers didn't bleed. The Dominion commander finally hailed the station on a wideband challenge, voice crisp and genderless through heavy modulation. "Unidentified colony vessel. You are ordered to power down drives and prepare for boarding. Any attempt to flee will be met with lethal force." Arden smiled at the admission. They believed the engines were live. He cut into the Dominion frequency, using a synthetic drawl reminiscent of Captain Orr, the militia ace who had died on day 1. "Dominion Control, this is Cirrus Actual. Acknowledged. We're just testing systems. Stand by for revised departure schedule." He killed the transmission, giving them just enough doubt to reorganize, but not enough to call a bluff. On the tactical overlay, the Dominion ships fanned out, repositioning to bracket an invisible acceleration corridor. Exactly as planned. Their new posture created a thinner screen nearer the North Polar debris vents, where Commander Voss's last corvettes idled with cold reactors, waiting to punch their way into darkness. "Corridors clear. Left," Arden whispered into her ear. "Go." From the sensor feed, the corvettes were little whispers at first, just low-sig hulls gliding behind tumbling ore canisters. They lit drives in perfect synchronicity, scorching through the opening before the Dominion's rear guard realized the engines they had pivoted to intercept did not in fact exist. One Dominion cruiser tried to pivot about, but Arden dumped a fresh packet of phantoms into its forward array. Hallucinated torpedoes on collision course, the cruiser wasted 30 valuable seconds launching countermeasures and rolling hard, giving the corvettes the margin they needed. 3 slipped past. The 4th suffered a reactor spike. Commander Voss's gum and prayer bucket and drifted, venting plasma. Dominion railguns shredded it into incandescent petals. Voss, aboard the lead corvette, keyed her mic. "We lost Sirocco." "I don't see any pods." Arden shut his eyes. He had never met the 23 souls aboard Sirocco, but in the enclosed loops of Cirrus life, everyone was family by some degree. The station shook again, a dull thud reverberating through steel. Dominion fire, angrier now. "They'll figure out the ruse any minute," Voss continued, breath hitching. "Can you keep them confused long enough for us to jump?" "Trying," he muttered. He dug deep into reserves. Creative, emotional, electrical. Pack 3's power indicators glowed scarlet. The suitcase was running hot, filters approaching meltdown. Overclocking further risked backfeeding current into his deck, cooking every board within meters, including him. But if he throttled down, Dominion analyst would correlate signal origins and burn him out anyway, he decided. Arden rerouted auxiliary feeds from life support conduits, barely enough to shave comfort levels in 2 habitation pods, but plenty to supercharge his transmitters. Alarm lights winked as vents shut. Already the temperature in his nook climbed. He executed Vanishing Fleet, a legacy prank once used by smugglers, an entire armada of echoes, each built from real Federation registry data, each assigned plausible speed, vector scatter, and comm chatter. He seeded them beyond the corvette's path, painting a flock of malicious star yachts converging for a relief charge. The data volume was massive. Dominion sensors would choke parsing it all. For a while, packets flew. Arden's vision jittered. He'd stared into cascading glyphs too long. In the swirl of simulation, he imagined standing on a balcony watching a carnival of comets. Beautiful. Lethal. Dominion comms erupted in overlapping directives. "New contacts bearing 095. Confirm identity codes. All units tighten net. Priority strike group relocate." Arden risked a grin. Even disciplined navies had fear thresholds. The point where improbable threat stacks felt too coincidental to ignore, Dominion had reached that. Whole squadrons banked to confront the Figment fleet, railguns spinning up. Meanwhile, Voss's remaining corvettes streaked for the lunar shadow where they could power up FTL nodes. 60 seconds, maybe less. Arden's console chimed a warning he never wanted to hear. Counter-hack detected. Someone aboard a Dominion command ship had triangulated a slice of his phantom traffic and now sent tracer pulses back along the waveguide, searching for origin. He typed lightning quick, erecting dead-end relays, letting the pulses bounce. But the Dominion attacker was good surgical. Every firewall he spawned was peeled open, its guts laid bare. A map leading closer to Deck 29. Perspiration stung his eyes. He hacked blind for a heartbeat, relying on muscle memory. The enemy traced, he evaded. Like wolves and rabbit through digital brush, he'd committed every maintenance conduit's RF resonance to memory. He slithered through them, pivoting outputs to random actuators, a food dispenser on Deck 6, a nanny drone dock, a defunct observation camera, but each dodge cost microseconds. A second console alarm pinged. Overload! Pack 3 was drawing more current than thermal plates could wick. In 73 seconds, it would auto-shut to avoid a runaway. He could siphon more power, but that would mean disabling cryo in Medical Annex 7. Marisol, remove those coolant feeds and the stabilization matrix for her fractured spine would destabilize, possibly condemn her to paralysis or death. 30 seconds to jump, came Voss's voice, ragged. Arden looked at the red overlay showing cryofeed lines. Voices overlapped in his head. Nurse Grin's calm professionalism, Marisol's half-panting laughter when they had raced microgravity corridors. He closed his eyes, inhaled metal, sweat, and ozone. "I'm sorry, Marty," he whispered, and killed cryo. Power surged. Pack 3 stabilized. Ardent rejoiced and hated himself in the same instant. The Dominion trace hit his newest decoy and forked into oblivion. He reloaded the Vanishing Fleet script with extra noise, saturating the spectrum so fully that for 12 glorious seconds Dominion sensors saw only shimmering haze. On the TAC display, Voss's corvettes ignited their Alcubierre seeds, flared bright, and winked out toward deep Neptune space. Gone. Safe assuming they survived whatever came next. A breath escaped Arden. Then his world exploded. Not literally. The deck remained intact, but an ache like cold iron cleaved his chest as the cryo alarm from Medical Annex screamed across station channels. Doctors calling codes. The feed lines he'd shut down hadn't just chilled Marisol. They had supported 2 infants, 1 burn victim, 3 evac sedation units. He had unplugged them all. He listened 5 seconds too long enough to hear a nurse wail. He slammed the channel mute. There were no words left. Pack 3 emitted a keening whine, fans failing. With the corvettes gone, Arden's illusions were just buying minutes now. Dominion ships would reorganize soon, confirmed the Ghost Fleet was vapor. Their next logical step. Board Cirrus, punish resistance, commandeer resources. His hacking had stung them, but not crippled them. Unless he did something final. Arden's eyes drifted to a stenciled warning on the coolant pipe. Plasma vent override manual only. He remembered a maintenance seminar years ago. If plasma vents were opened while reservoir pumps ran at combat throughput, the escaping superheated gas would radiate at intensity rivaling small suns. To external thermal sensors, it would register like a catastrophic core implosion. Doctrine said any attacker would pull back, fearing a chain reaction that could send molten debris across hundreds of kilometers. It was a lie. Plasma vent safeties prevented true runaway, but Dominion didn't know Cirrus's safeties were uncalibrated after 2 decades of slipstream dust. Trigger both illusions at once, sensor ghosts and real plasma bloom. And maybe, just maybe, he could bluff the enemy into a total retreat, thinking the station seconds from self-destructing. Risk, the vent release valve was 3 levels up. Within a corridor already hull-breached, he would need a suit, traverse, and manual crank all before Dominion boarding pods made contact, and he'd be exposing himself, ending the dance behind screens. He pushed from the console, legs tingling, grabbed his patched Enviro suit. He slid arms into mag-lined sleeves, cinched the neck ring. Pack 3, he left humming, set to auto-spray static until capacitors fried. Arden Reyes emerged into dim magenta emergency lighting, turning left toward access tube C. He passed 2 terrified hydroponic techs crouched around oxygen candles. One asked, "Is it over?" He didn't answer. Rungs rattled under his boots as he climbed. A beam of distant starlight cut through a cracked viewport, illuminating eddies of dust like silver riverbanks. Explosions shook the hull. He felt them as low notes in his bones. At Deck 26, the corridor ended at a sealed blast door. Outer edge crumpled from a previous hit. He toggled the manual release. Gears complained. The door slid just enough. Beyond, vacuum hissed faintly. His suit sealed. He squeezed through. The world outside was raw night. A ruptured tunnel opened to space, jagged metal teeth framing the cosmos. In the distance, Dominion fighters still orbited, searching. He latched to a guide cable, boots locking via mag soles, and trudged forward until he reached the plasma override. Paint flaking, warning stripes faded. He wrapped gloved fingers around the lever. Comm channel open to all frequencies, he broadcast using his real voice, no filters. Dominion forces, this is Arden Reyes of Cirrus Station. Ceasefire and withdraw immediately. We have initiated runaway vent protocols. Impact in 3 minutes. static as 30 enemy captains considered probability. A single response cut through. The same genderless modulator as before. "You are bluffing." "Check your thermals," he said. Even as he spoke, he twisted the lever. Deep below, pumps roared awake, venting plumes of molten copper-orange plasma that erupted from the station's equatorial seams. Not enough to break coil containment, but visually convincing. Sensors would scream. Open air, he saw the first jets ignite, bathing hull plates in a hellish glow. The light painted his suit bronze. For an instant, Cirrus Station resembled a dying star. Dominion frigates rolled to port, retreat vectors blossoming. Interceptor wings cut acceleration burn and peeled back. Across the void, command modules likely argued risk matrices. They could not know whether containment would hold. Conservative doctrine said, "Don't be nearby when a space station detonates." He watched them waver. 3 fighters chose caution too late, panicked, and collided headlong with an expanding shard field ghosts he'd left active near the vent arms. Another kill by trickery, not malice. 10 seconds stretched. 20. Then the entire Dominion flotilla pivoted as one, drives flaring, falling back to a safer perimeter at the ragged edge of sensor range. Retreat, but not full withdrawal. Still, it was time bought. Arden released the lever, arms trembling. Pumps clicked off according to timing cycles. Plasma fountains dwindled. He could reseal vents within 20 minutes if controls still responded. Long enough for survivors aboard Cirrus to regroup, extinguish fires, maybe mount secondary escape waves. Long enough to find out who he'd killed to achieve it. He turned, facing the hollow corridor, the living room view of infinite night. The station spoke to him via creaks, fans, whispers through bulkhead seams. Somewhere far below, a nurse sobbed over a muted channel. Somewhere beyond, his sister's fate waited in a frozen moment he had made. The hacker swallowed air that tasted like rubber and dust. He toggled the general broadcast again, voice ragged. "Cirrus Station, this is Reyes. Hostiles are in retreat. For now. Start evacuations through South Dock while window holds. I repeat, commence evac. I'll guide what's left of traffic control." A chorus of replies flooded his headset. Fear, gratitude, confusion. But he only half heard them. He turned back toward the maintenance tube, ready to descend to his ghost-lit console and shepherd more lives through lies. As he moved, the suit HUD flashed a private comm. He expected medbay triage. Instead, he saw Voss's call sign, transmitting from deep space. The Corvette captain spoke softly, like someone standing beside a grave. "We got clear, Arden. Jump drive charging for second hop. Casualties acknowledged. Your sister's pod. We have it. We scooped every drifting capsule. She's alive." He stopped, knees weak, gripping a strut, afraid to exhale. Voss continued. "She's asking if you saved the station." Outside the shattered hull, ghostly glitter drifted. Detritus of wrecked fighters, shards of ice, illusions half-born. Arden Reyes stared at them, unsure which shapes were real anymore. Maybe all of them, maybe none. He keyed the mic, voice hoarse. Tell her the phantoms are gone. Copy." A pause, then, "Good luck, hacker." The channel closed. Arden gazed into the star-wound sky, feeling the weight of everything he'd done settle like settling ash. The station still burned and bled. The enemy still lurked. His tricks would not last forever. But for one heartbeat, the siege had cracked, and light, real light this time, not digital filtered through. He pivoted, set boots to ladder, and began the long climb down. There were more ghosts to summon, more lies to weave, until the truth of dawn arrived. And when dawn finally came, he vowed, Cirrus Station would still be there to see it.